And now it's time for Windy City Sports Talk. And your host, Ryan Young. Hello, Chicago! Welcome to this live Tuesday, October the 25th edition of Windy City Sports Talk. I am Ryan Young. For the next half hour, we're going to recap and preview all the big stuff going on in the world of sports. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at ringside_rep. I'm here for the next, obviously, half hour. Getting you ready as we are just about, T-minus 4 hours away from the first World Series game in Chicago Cubs recent memory. Of course, the last one being 1945, which I'm sure not many people that would listen to this was around. And that brings me to my opening statement. And over the last couple of hours, I've been reminiscing, and I mean, I'm only 25 years old, so I'm not sitting here and gonna say that, I've suffered longer than a lot of people. But the way I handle this Cub team, I mean, I've dealt with the suffering, and I think the worst collapse in this Cubs long run, I was definitely a part of, and that was 2003, when they were 5 outs away from the World Series and everything happened. But it's such a interesting thing, because of course tonight, it's still, I mean, it might not sink in, it still might not. I mean, it's starting to sink in now, you're starting to see all the stuff, and you're starting to see all the talk. I mean, I watch World Series coverage every single year. I've not seen my team in it, obviously, so it's going to be weird to have a dog in the fight, because it's just something you're not used to. And it's always about the memories. That's what I reflect on. I don't know if many Cub fans are like that today, but it's reflecting time. It's because Game 1, before the biggest series in almost 100 years, or if you count 1945, but it begins tonight, and it makes you think of all the great times you've had being a Chicago Cub fan. Yeah, there's been a lot of losing. 101 losses just a few years ago, and that's when I was going to 20 games a year, and now I've cut it back to maybe 10. Because that commute, oof. I live in Wisconsin, it's not easy. But just to think about all the fun times when you go with your family, your dad, your grandfather, the ones that got you hooked on the love of the game. And that's what I think about today. Now, I am very, very fortunate to have not lost the person that made me fall in love with baseball. And that is obviously my dad. And he is still alive and kicking. You hear him here on Fridays. The emotion in his voice when we watched that game together on Saturday and then all of a sudden that double play, and the first thing I say is, "Dad, we're going to the World Series." And from my first game, and I think I brought this up last week, my first game, being able to get the chance to walk up those steps and see the vines, the grass, the ambiance of Wrigley Field, and just everything beyond that. He used to work at Raymond Chevrolet in Antioch for years, and we got an opportunity. All of a sudden, one time he called me up, because they had Raymond seats. They were like behind home plate, because the boss of Raymond Chevrolet in Antioch, Ray Scarpelli, was best friends with Ron Santo, and so they had tickets through Ron Santo, and my dad met him a bunch of times. We have an autographed baseball from him. And but we got the Sano seats all the time, we always said. But that's not the story, that's just a side note. But all of a sudden, one time he calls me up. I remember I was playing Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest in our living room. And he comes, and all of a sudden I get a call from him at work saying, "Hey, son, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Playing Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest." He goes, "You want to go to Wrigley Field?" And I'm thinking, I was only about maybe 10. He goes, I'm like, "The Cubs aren't playing at home today, Dad. They're in Cincinnati." "I know, son. You want to go on Wrigley Field?" And I got to spend a night, 3 hours on Wrigley Field. Got to run the bases, play catch in left field. Got to we got into the dugout, which we were allowed to do. But then we tried going up, because right when you walk down, which I'm sure it's been renovated now, but right when you walk down the steps to go into the clubhouse, right to the right's a urinal. But I'm sure that I don't think that's like that anymore. But because obviously this was 15 years ago, but to be able to experience that, and it was me and him and a guy and his kid from work. It was just an absolute honor to be able to do that, and that's a memory I'll never forget. First bleacher game was July, I want to say it was 8th. I was just looking at the ticket stub and the pictures a bit ago. 2003, Cubs Marlins. Yes, it was before that. 2003, Dontrelle Willis versus Carlos Zambrano. First bleacher game, rain delay. And obviously that'd be the matchup of the NLCS that year. I think the Cubs ended up losing that game. First, like I said, first rain delay, first bleacher game. That was amazing. And I mean, we've had a lot of games since then. We go to a game together. We go to a game here. This year was 2. From a couple of years ago to the 100th birthday game, me and him got a chance to watch all the legends and the tears in his eyes as he came out, and or as all the Hall of Famers. Obviously missing Ron Santo. Ernie Banks was still alive. He was there. That was to be able to share that moment with him was phenomenal, to celebrate 100 years of Wrigley Field. And then, of course, this year, getting a chance to be in my first rooftop game, celebrating the Cubs, and our first playoff game together against the Giants where the Cubs won. So, I mean, and for people that, I'm sure this is probably well documented, we have our ups and downs. What father and son don't? It's two people with the same temper, the same personalities, and you're bound to clash. It happens. That's life. But the one thing I'm honored for is to have him be here to be able to witness this. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have loved ones that aren't here and can't witness it. But I'm just grateful, and I mean, I'm sure, and the Cubs are doing it for all them people up there. And it's been an absolutely, hopefully the fun ride continues. 4 wins away from a World Series, but the Indians aren't no joke. We're going to preview that in a little bit, but that's kind of my story. And today it's just reminiscing day to know that in our life, my lifetime, knowing that, I mean, my grandma, who's still with us, she was about 11 when the Cubs made their last World Series in 1945. So that's about the age you can still remember it. And then she lived in Chicago. Raised my dad in Chicago. And that's how my dad became a big Cub fan and then moved here his freshman year. So he'll be back on Friday. And that'll be before Game 3 of the World Series. So, of course, I mean, so that's that. We're going to talk more Cubs in just a little bit. There's some stuff to dive into. I want to try to dedicate, and we started a couple minutes early because I got a haircut. So, and I got to get to. So let's talk about what happened last night quickly. Kind of skim through it. The Blackhawks last night lose in a shootout to the Calgary Flames. They lose of a final of 3-2. It went 7 rounds. And oddly enough, it was Kris Versteeg that got the game winner. And of course, I want to say, and I don't think Nick's listening, but he would definitely chime in. I believe Kris Versteeg was on the first Stanley Cup team for the Hawks. I don't think he was on the second, but I believe he was on the first. But he got it for the Flames. The Blackhawks lose 3-2. They do get a point. Obviously, still haven't watched a hockey game yet, and I don't think I will until after the World Series. But now basketball starts Thursday for the Bulls, which will take most of my attention too. So I'm going to try to cover the Hawks, but it just seems like hockey to me only gets exciting around the playoffs. And then baseball's going back at it again. So, as I said, hockey's 4th on my list. That's going to be one of the main things I'm going to have to be covering soon. So, I'm hoping to get that going. But the Hawks lose last night. They do get a point. The PK unit's definitely been rough from a lot of people. And I'm getting a chime in here, so I'm guessing Nick is listening, which I'm appreciating because he's like my producer. First and last Stanley Cup teams for Stieg. Thank you very much, Nick. Nick's like my producer. He lets me know what's going on, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Nick. So a tough loss for the Hawks last night. Now they get some days off. They will play Friday night against the Devils. That gives some time to give leeway to the World Series, which is obviously big on everyone's mind, especially around here, whether you are a sports fan, whether you are a Cub fan, whether you're an Indians fan. It's Midwest. It's a big Midwest feel. Apparently it's going to be very, very cold tonight. The rain is supposed to come in tomorrow night, so not sure if that game's going to be playing to its full start on time and stop and go. And I mean, you don't really want that because, I mean, if the Cubs are winning, but obviously with the day off, there wouldn't probably be a day off because I'd have to finish that game before getting ready for 3 at Wrigley Field. So the Hawks lose, like I said, they play. Next game's Friday, so we'll bring that up on Friday. Well, we'll attempt to bring that up on Friday. So that is that. We got about 18 and a half minutes left of the show. The last part of it's going to be dedicated to Game 1 tonight of the World Series. There's a couple of other tidbit of things I want to talk about, but of course I like to bring that out of the Windy City Sports Minute, which begins right now. This is your Windy City Sports Minute for Tuesday, October the 25th. The 2016 World Series begins tonight in Cleveland as the Cubs and the Indians will be going at it, as it'll be John Lester going up against Corey Kluber, 7 p.m., 7:08 first pitch on Fox. The NBA tips off tonight as the defending champions just across the street from where the World Series will be taking place. The Cleveland Cavaliers will be hosting the New York Knicks, a.k.a. Chicago Knicks, as Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah debut for New York. In other news, the Blackhawks lose last night in a shootout 3-2 to the Calgary Flames, and Josh Brown has been released from the New York Football Giants. Also, Jay Cutler is cleared to play and looks like he'll be ready to go for next Monday night's game against the Bears. That is your Windy City, or against the Vikings. That is your Windy City Sports Minute. Now back to Windy City Sports Talk. Welcome back here to Windy City Sports Talk. We got about 15, or a little over 50. We got about 18 minutes left. Glad you could join us here as we get you ready for Game 1 of the World Series, Cubs-Indians. A couple things I want to talk about before that. As you heard in the Windy City Sports Minute, Jay Cutler cleared to play. He will be playing, it looks like he's given the go, and will start Monday night against the Vikings, which would also be an off day in the World Series. So that'll be able to get... Do you really want to, at this point, give the Bears any attention? It's been a dreadful season. Do you really... I mean, do you look at this and think, go to draft pick? And I talked to my dad about this in the game the other night, or when he was on Friday. And I told him, I'm like, yo, is it time to think about draft pick? He said it's too early. Well, if they drop to 1-7, that's halfway through. I think you're going to see this team win a couple of games. I'm not thinking, but I mean, 3 losses still. I mean, does Cleveland even have a win yet? I don't even know. But hopefully this team can get back on board and show some life. And I mean, the Vikings did not play well this past week against the Eagles. So there's no way, shape, or form that we're going to sit here and say that. I mean, they're 5-0, but they were vulnerable last week. They're going to be a tough team to beat at home. This game's at Soldier Field. So I think the Bears do have an opportunity to win this game and possibly be a very tough and have a chance. Yes, the last time they were on Monday night, they got embarrassed by the Eagles. Well, guess what? Give them another opportunity here and see what they can do. And I think having Jay Cutler out there gives you some experience. Yes, he has a personality of a wall, but give him the chance. So that's that, and we'll get more into the Bears on Monday. Probably not. We'll try. Beatty Mondays kind of gets corrupted by Scott Beatty, so we don't have a Windy City Sports Minute, and it's Halloween. Monday is Halloween, ladies and gentlemen, which for me is exciting because it's one step closer to my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, which from yesterday is a month away. So we're less than a month from Thanksgiving, and 2 months today from Christmas. Bring on the holidays, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now let's talk, a couple other things I want to talk about. The Walking Dead. One of my favorite shows. I did not watch the finale from last season till Sunday, mainly because they always do their season finale on the same night as WrestleMania, which I'm usually attending, and I've never really got around to it. And it was a very interesting finale, and of course the season premiere was this past Sunday also. Now, if you're listening to this show and have not watched Walking Dead yet and are a big fan, who they get 10 to 20, 30 million people, then I thank you, because I'm going to go spoilers here. That episode on Sunday may haunt me for a long time. It was very, very graphic. There was eyes popping out. There were heads beat to a bloody pulp. This was on AMC. So definitely something that's going to be interesting, and I think it'll make for this series to... I mean, I always need something to lure me back in. But, whoa, Negan. Barbed wire baseball bat. Puts Cactus Jack to shame. But, yeah, some people might need kids. If any kids decide, I'm going to try walking, I'm going to let my kids watch Walking Dead this week. And for the first time I had to watch that episode, holy cow. And it's another thing. Harry Carey, which obviously it's not the real one, has been going around on radio shows today, calling it, and it's not been Will Ferrell, and it's not been Ryan Dempster, because I know that you can tell them two are highly overdramatic. This guy sounded like him, and he's calling, he's confusing Joe Madden and John Madden, calling Theo Epstein, Theo Einstein, and then calling him Kyle Schwarzenegger. So, that's been funny, and I don't know who it is, and I'm sure it'll get annoying if the Cubs start losing. And then an article I read about the Cubs. Let's have Steve Bartman throw out the first pitch at Game 3. No. And I'm not saying that because I believe that it's good. I mean, I want that to happen, but I want it to happen after a championship. Because he comes in, throws Game 3. Say the Cubs are up 2-0 and lose the next 4 or something like that. The guy's going to get blamed again. Let him come out of the spotlight when the quote-unquote curse is finally over. So I say no to that, and I say let him come back. Let him drive the damn boat in the parade. But do not let him... Don't sacrifice something that isn't official yet. The curse, part of the curse is over. They made it to the World Series. The next part of the quote-unquote curse is to win the World Series. They're 4 wins away from that. If they want to have connection, I don't even know if they have connection. I'm sure they could find out where Steve Bartman is, which is probably his name's probably Tom Nankovich now or something like that. But no, just let's wait on that until it happens. And also the NBA tips off tonight in Cleveland. LeBron James gets his ring, and they host the Chicago Knicks tonight. And I corrected Tony. We taped Ringside Report today for tomorrow, and I'm like, "Yep, the Chicago Knicks." He's like, "No, Ryan, it's the New York Knicks." I'm like, "I know, Tony. They got 2 of the 5 guys from their lineup last year, being Noah and Rose. Do I want to see them fail? Derrick Rose, he's rooting for the Cubs. Jerry Reinsdorf's rooting for the Cubs. But still, I don't like the Knicks. I think the Knicks, for me, are more hated than... Not going to be more hated as what the Heat were, because the Heat put me in the hospital. But I'm going to say they're just about up there with... I think they're past, because I don't really hate the Warriors. That'll be a fun story. They start tonight as well. But tonight, I say go Cavs. I don't want to see the Bulls. I don't want to see the Knicks win. They'll be at the United Center this year. I want to see Derek. I can almost guarantee you by Christmas, both Noah and Rose will have some kind of injury, and I'm not wishing that on them. But I mean, if they can give a run for LeBron and have a run at the title, I mean, I guess I don't hate them as much. But if they can make a run and make it fun and have someone new in the finals, then sure. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get that far. But we shall see. But tonight they will tip off. They changed everything around. I believe 5:30 Central. They're doing the ring ceremony. They're starting the game at 6:30 Central, which tip off will be a half hour before, about 38 to 40 minutes before the World Series Game 1. For you folks that don't know, Quicken Loans Arena and Progressive Field are about right next door to each other. So you got two of the biggest things happening tonight is happening right now, are going to be happening in Cleveland. It's a city that and a lot of people, and Kevin Millar said this on Intentional Talk, a city that goes, ugh, anytime you probably see it on a schedule. It's not an exciting town, as far as I know. Never been there. So it's exciting for the city. It's going to be fun to see the World Series for the first time in Chicago. That'll be this weekend. And the Cubs need to win 3 or 4, or at least split in Cleveland to have a chance to hoist that title in Chicago. Either way, Chicago would be crazy. So that's all my ranting NBA tonight. Go Cavs, I guess, and go Warriors, I guess. I don't know. Everyone says that's going to be the finals, and call me. I remember I was in Nashville when the finals ended. Great series. Fun to watch. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and if anyone's going to come in between that. Looking forward to it. So that is the NBA tips off tonight. Bulls tip off Thursday night. We'll try to get a little previewing in that on Thursday. We'll be recapping a lot of Game 2 and getting ready for that series to shift to the Windy City. Now let's preview it, guys. Cubs, Indians, World Series, Game 1 tonight from Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio. It's going to be Jon Lester against Corey Kluber. The big news coming out of this is it's official. He's in the lineup. Want to say he's batting 5th. Designated hitter, Kyle Schwarber. Now, I was on the show yesterday with Scott Beatty, and I said, I think this is a bad idea. The guy's taken 6 at-bats since April 7th. And I mean, I don't like it, but I saw Scott Beatty post on a post that say, hey, why? The Cubs, the front office, the management has done everything right. Why doubt them now? So I'm going to agree with it right now, and we'll see where it takes us. We'll see if he's rusty. He's got to go up against Corey Kluber tonight. He's got to go up against, I believe it's Trevor Bauer tomorrow, which is he going to be the new aged Curt Schilling? You had him with the bloody sock. And now you're going to have possibly Trevor Bauer with the bloody finger. So, I think Schwarber going to be big. And another interesting part of the lineup is that Jason Hayward is not in that lineup tonight. Now, he might come in for defensive purposes, but he has just been dreadful. Playing right field tonight is Chris Coghlan. The guy can make contact. He can really get a rally started. Again, there's no pitchers batting in this series in Cleveland. No DH, or there is a DH, so no pitching batting. Which, I mean, takes away that guaranteed out normally. So the Cubs, for the first 2 games, and possibly the last 2, will have to adjust to American League rules, which they play interleague play every year. They can do that. So I think I think this is going to be fun. Now, I think the Cubs need to leave Cleveland with at least 1 win, because that puts them at least a shot, and they've only lost 1 game at home. It gives them a shot of clinching the biggest thing that's ever happened in the city of Chicago in Chicago. And a lot of people would love to see it. Did you see how electric that place was Saturday night when they clinched the National League pennant? It was great. And I think the atmosphere, now I believe, I'm not sure how Cleveland Fox is going to have their set. I want to say Pete Rose cannot go into a ballpark. So that's why they did it outside for the pregame and postgame at Wrigley. They'll probably be at the same spot. And then you'll have to do the, and probably in Cleveland somewhere, which down there is going to be a mob scene because you got the Cavaliers, and then do you think there's anyone in Cleveland that bought a ticket? I mean, you have to be rich to go to at least go to the Indians playoff game. But do you think someone just bought a ticket to see the ring ceremony and see tip-off, leave Quicken Loans Arena, and get to the World Series game. Because, I mean, you probably just want to see the ring ceremony. You got 81 games after that, but buy a ticket for that, then leave. You see tip-off, see, I don't think the first quarter, see the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then get over for the World Series. That'd be great. That'd be fun. But I think this is going to be a good series. Now everyone talking about today, Jon Lester. They're not going to be able to pick him. They're going to pick him off, or they're going to run on him, and they're going to dominate. Well, I retweeted Heidi Watney, who works for MLB Network, her post, or her picture. Jason Kipnis looks like he has a baseball on his ankle. He hurt his ankle while celebrating in the American League Championship Series, so I'm sure he's going to be either I wouldn't say heavily medicated, but on some painkillers or a cortisone shot or whatever he's got to do. But he's going to be in there, he's willing and able. So, I mean, up the middle, if a ball goes flying through, is he going to be okay to do it? Now, of course, when the drugs wear off after the game and the adrenaline's not pumping anymore, now that could hurt him, and then possibly that will he'll feel that the next day, and could he re-injure it? Now that looked very rough, and I'm guessing that's from today that Heidi Watney posted that. So I think that shall be. So I think that might be a factor. Francisco Lindor's fast, but one interesting other point here is that Lester and in 2013 Lester and Ross were on that World Series team. So was Mike Napoli. And at first I thought Terry Francona was there, but I believe he left already, or got fired, or whatever happened. So if you think about this, you got Lester, and I mean nobody knows Lester more than probably Terry Francona, who is the manager of the Cleveland Indians, and he probably knows that he also can't throw over to first. And David Ross, the catcher, I'm sure they know. So I think it's going to be interesting to see which one has the bigger advantage. Like I said, Mike Napoli, who's going to be their designated hitter, is going to probably have an advantage as well. He's one of their power hitters. I think but they also strike out a lot, I believe, this team. I mean, you got Carlos Santana, you got Mike Napoli as your power of this order. Kipnis, Lindor, I think them are going to be the guys. Jose Ramirez is like a pepper schnot. So you got a lot of interesting things to happen, and I think this should be a very fun series. I heard Pedro Gomez say Cubs in 5. I heard, who the heck was it? I heard someone say, Eduardo Perez say that he's got the Indians in 6. So it's going to be, I'm excited for it. I don't feel nerves. I'm not going to say the what-if game because I'm not going to try to cover up myself. This is a big series, but I don't want to go through this again. I do not want to have to listen to 1908, Billy Goat, Black Cat, Leon Durham, Bartman. I want that to all end. And for Sox fans, that's all they have left. Because if the Cubs win a World Series, they done. They gone. Because what else are they going to say? It took you 100 years. Yeah, we got one. And then the pressure goes back on you because the Cubs will be right back in that spot next year. Not saying in the World Series, but in the playoffs. So, I'm not going to predict who's going to win the series, so you know where my heart lies. I want the Cubs to win it. If they lose tonight, obviously it'll be a must-win tomorrow. Kind of. Because then you got 3 at home, but then you're going to be forced to win. So I think you got to win one of these games here to have a shot. Because part of me feels like they're going to sweep. But another part of me thinks the Indians are going to have a chance to really control the series. Because they're that team with the momentum this year. But the Cubs are the best team in baseball. So which one will shine brighter? The Cubs win 1 of 2 in Cleveland. It's going to be fun and loud and proud in Chicago. And it will be even if they lose 2. But win 1, get that out of the way tonight and see what happens with Jake Arrieta tomorrow. Folks, it's time for World Series baseball. And guess what? Cubs are in it. Enjoy that. Embrace that. However long it lasts, positive or negative, enjoy it. For the first time since 1945, the Cubs are in the World Series. I'm Ryan Young. See you tomorrow. Have a great day, Chicago.